Welcome to the deep dive. Whether you're a diehard animation fan or someone who's just fascinated by the high-stakes chess game of entertainment business strategy, you're in the exact right place.
Yeah, we have a lot to unpack.
We really do, because today we are looking at a massive, completely unprecedented leak regarding the highly anticipated, officially wrapped, animated adult Aang movie.
And we should clarify right up front, we aren't talking about, a blurry photo from a test screening.
Right.
Or a hacker breaking into a secure server.
No, the sources we're using today come courtesy of a really detailed transcript from the YouTube channel The Avatar. And this channel meticulously breaks down insider leaks that originated from an exclusive Paramount and Nickelodeon cast and crew wrap party.
Which is just wild to think about.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about a physical event, right? A celebration of the film's completion, and somehow became ground zero for the first real look the public is getting at a movie that has been shrouded in absolute secrecy.
What's fascinating here is the sheer anatomy of this. In the modern digital age, the way information escapes the corporate fortress has changed so drastically.
It's not disgruntled employees copying VHS tapes anymore.
Exactly. Today, as we're seeing in this incredibly detailed breakdown from our source, completely mundane party favors are suddenly elevated to the status of high-stakes corporate espionage.
It's true.
The mundane becomes monumental the second it's photographed and put on the internet. And frankly, the studios haven't quite figured out how to plug a hole that's being created by their own celebratory napkins and drink menus.
Yeah, and just to picture the scale here, the stage at this event was massive. This wasn't 30 animators grabbing lukewarm pizza in a break room.
No, not at all.
This was a massive insider event with an after party and, crucially, a full premiere of the movie for the people in attendance. The movie is done. It's in the can.
It's finished.
Right. And yet, you and I, the public, we haven't seen a single frame of an official trailer. Instead, we are peering through the keyhole of a wrap party, analyzing the typography on a cocktail menu.
Which brings us to arguably the most ironic detail of this entire situation.
Oh, the sticker.
Yes. The YouTuber highlights this specific leaked sticker from the event. It features a piece of artwork of adult Aang, and on the sticker itself, it explicitly instructs attendees, and I quote, "Do not post or photograph artwork until after the film release."
I laughed out loud when I saw that. You literally have a sticker telling people not to photograph the artwork, and the only reason we or the YouTuber know about the sticker is because someone photographed the artwork of the sticker and posted it on.
It's the ultimate paradox of the smartphone era.
It feels almost naive on the part of the studio organizer.
I wouldn't just call it naive, I'd actually call it a fundamental misunderstanding of behavioral psychology. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it speaks volumes about the futility of attempting to control information at a celebratory gathering in 2026. Think about it. You invite a massive crew.
Yeah.
Artists, animators, sound designers, voice actors, people who had just spent 4 grueling years of their lives pouring their souls into a project.
And you throw them a party.
You throw them a party. You give them themed drinks, stickers, and a sense of absolute triumph. To then slap a do not photograph sticker on the merchandise is almost a dare.
It really is.
It highlights a massive disconnect between corporate non-disclosure agreements and basic human nature. These artists want to celebrate their hard work. When you put a physical object in someone's hand at a party, it ceases to be corporate intellectual property in their mind.
It becomes a personal memento.
Exactly. And people share their mementos.
I do want to push back on that slightly, though. Do you think there's any chance this was an intentional soft? Because studios know how the internet works.
That's a common theory.
Right. Sometimes I wonder if they allow these controlled leaks from wrap parties just to get the fandom's temperature. It builds hype without the studio having to officially commit to a marketing.
It's a fair theory. And studios definitely utilize soft leaks. They call them controlled deployments in marketing circles. We saw it heavily during the superhero movie boom of the 2010s, where those supposedly candid paparazzi shot costumes were suspiciously well lit.
Oh, yeah. Perfectly framed and color graded.
Right. But I really don't buy that theory here.
Why not?
The chaotic nature of the framing, the glare on the photos, the fact that we're looking at crumpled menus, it all feels completely organic. It's messy. Corporate event planning inadvertently became the first official marketing material the public sees.
The event planners accidentally became the PR department.
Precisely. The person tasked with designing the themed cocktails for this wrap party was probably just trying to match the color palette of the characters. They had absolutely no idea they were drafting the foundational documents for the fandom's visual expectations of these adult characters.
Right, the drink menu as a canvas. So let's get into the weeds on this menu because the Avatarist breaks it down with incredible precision. Let's start with Toph.
Okay, let's look at Toph.
The drink is called the Earthbender. The recipe is vodka, fresh lime juice, simple syrup, Thai basil, and ginger.
From a purely culinary perspective, the Thai basil and ginger ale give it an earthy, spicy kick that perfectly suits the character. It's sharp, a little biting, grounded.
It sounds delicious, honestly.
It does. But obviously, we aren't here for the mixology. The real meat of this leak is the artwork accompanying the drink.
And here's where it gets really... The visual analysis of Toph on this menu gives us a massive update on our character. The YouTuber compares it directly to a set of widely circulated, heavily criticized that happened back in 2020.
Yes, the infamous 2023 leaks.
Apparently, the creators listened to the feedback because Toph's silhouette is drastically different.
The source notes two major design corrections. First, the removal of the large shoulder pads that were really dominating her upper body 2023 leaks.
Good reason.
Second, the alteration of her belt, which the YouTuber hilariously described as previously looking like a Power Rangers WWE belt.
From toe to Toph, as the source puts it. But I want to dig into why the fandom rejected those 2023 designs so violently in the first place, and why this menu art is such a relief.
It's a huge relief for a very specific reason.
Right. Putting Toph in massive, restrictive shoulder pads and a giant, ostentatious championship belt completely contradicted the utilitarian, minimalist approach. She relies on unrestricted kinetic chain movement.
Exactly.
The removal of those elements shows a return to her core design philosophy. She doesn't need external armor. The earth is her armor.
That is a crucial observation regarding her biomechanics. When we look at animation design, especially for martial arts-based systems, the clothing has to facilitate the movement, not fight it.
Yeah.
Those 2023 shoulder pads would have fundamentally altered her center of gravity on screen. It would have made her look top-heavy, which is the exact opposite of the grounded, low-stand, southern praying mantis style her movements are actually based on.
That's a great point.
The updated design on the menu reflects a much deeper understanding of how the character physically operates in a 3D space, even if she's drawn in 2D.
And that leads perfectly into the physical stance depicted in the artwork. The source describes it as a wide, earthbending stance, noting that she looks incredibly powerful. But the most revealing part of the analysis is the YouTuber's interpretation of the action.
This was a brilliant catch by the source.
Yeah. Initially, they thought she was just pushing a massive boulder around, which is standard imagery we've seen a million times.
But upon closer inspection of the line work and the weight distribution in the drawing, the source realizes she isn't just pushing a rock.
She's not.
No, she's actively standing her ground. She is bracing herself against an external force, and the YouTubers speculate, quite provocatively, that she is bracing against an airbender.
Which completely shifts the narrative context of the image. There is a massive difference in animation between the forward momentum of pushing a heavy object and the defensive, rooted tension of bracing against a high-velocity impact.
Let's talk about the physics of animation for a sec. To convey pushing, an animator draws the character's weight, leaning forward, often off balance, letting gravity assist the drive.
Making them look like they're falling into the push.
Right, but to convey bracing, the animator has to draw a kinetic chain that drives down into the floor. The feet dig in, the spine compresses slightly, the shoulders hunch to protect the center mass. The menu art captures this compression perfectly.
And if she's bracing against an airbender, which is a very short list of potential people in this specific era, it implies a level of conflict, or at least intense training that we haven't seen. It implies velocity and resistance.
It really does.
But I have to ask, do you think fans might be reading too much into a single still frame? Animators often use dynamic poses for promotional art that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual plot of the movie.
That's a completely valid skepticism. Promotional art is often just cool character doing cool thing.
Right, just striking a pose for the camera.
Exactly. However, the specificity of the bracing pose is what makes the YouTuber's theory so compelling. You don't accidentally draw a compression stance. If the prompt was just draw Toph earthbend, the default is an aggressive strike.
Throwing a rock.
Throwing a rock. A defensive bracing maneuver suggests a specific storyboard panel was used as the reference for this menu art. It tells you, the listener, to expect kinetic intensity from the film's action sequence. We aren't just getting flashy elemental effects. We are getting weight, force, and heavy physical impact.
Speaking of heavy physical impacts, let's turn the page on this menu to the next drink. This one is explosive. We have Zuko's drink, Fire Nation Old Fashioned.
The ingredients listed are whiskey, sugar cubes, and orange slice, and a specific brand of bitters that causes our source a bit of humorous trouble.
Oh, this is great.
The menu lists Angostura bitters, but the YouTuber misreads it as Angor or Angtor bitter.
I love how the YouTuber's brain immediately tries to find a lore-based reason for the misspelling. They're wondering if the party planners chose those bitters to do a funny wordplay on the name Aang, tying it back to how Zuko bitter.
It shows how deep the analytical rabbit hole goes for this fandom.
It really does. But beyond the mixology, the artwork of Zuko himself is stunning.
The graphic design of the menu incorporates the character's action beautifully. Zuko is launching a powerful downward fire blast, and sparks from his attack are flying outwards, actually burning the literal text of the menu itself.
So
The source specifically points out that the letter D in the word old-fashioned is fully burnt away.
it's incredibly clever graphic design for a temporary event meant breaks the fourth wall. But looking at Zuko himself, the source notes his outfit is somewhat similar to the 2023 leak, but much more fitted. More importantly, he's got a haircut.
Yes, the hair is a big deal.
He's an adult, he's established, and the fitted outfit suggests a level of comfort and authority.
He's comfortable, but he's clearly in the middle of a massive fight. And this is where the environmental details of the leak give us a really tantalizing plot clue.
Okay, tell me about the back.
The source analyzes the background behind Zuko as he unleashes this downward blast. Initially, based on older rumors, people assumed any major battle in this film would take place in a sprawling, industrialized metropolis.
Like Republic City.
Right, something heavily built up. But looking at the structural details in this new art, the YouTuber concludes it's not a city at all. The architecture suggests a completely different, much more remote location. They believe Zuko is fighting at an air temple.
Which is huge. That raises a massive question about thematic resonance. If Zuko is unleashing massive, structure-burning fire blasts at an air temple, fighting a villain alongside Aang, it fundamentally changes our understanding of the movie's scope and emotional weight. But does it risk being repetitive? We've seen fire blasts at air temple. That's the foundational trauma of the entire franchise. Does bringing Zuko back to an air temp fight a massive battle feel like a regression? Or is it a necessary piece of narrative closure for his character as an adult?
I'd argue strongly for the latter. It's not a regression, it's a reclamation. Think about it. The temples are places of spiritual refuge. The historical context of a firebender bringing destruction to those specific locations is the heaviest thematic material the franchise possesses.
Absolutely.
To have Zuko, as an adult leader, fighting to defend an air temple rather than attack it, provides a visual poetry that brings his character arc full circle. The trauma of the past is brought right to the doorstep of the sanctuary, but this time the fire isn't consuming, the fire is protecting it.
That is a massive thematic. And if we're gleaning that just from the background of a cocktail menu, the actual film's narrative must be incredible.
It really is wild how much narrative weight we can extract from a piece of cardstock.
It reminds me to mention the logo, actually. The source notes that down in the bottom corner of the image, there's the new official logo for the movie. The designers slightly tweaked the colors to make it pop against the background, and it seems to be a much more versatile, functional design than the older, clunkier.
Functionality in graphic design is vital for a multimedia franchise. A logo has to look sweeping and epic on an IMAX poster, but it also has to look legible printed on a 2-inch sticker or an app icon. Refining the branding to be sharper, more adaptable is standard operating procedure when moving from a television property to a global theatrical or, well, a streaming editor.
Right, the streaming shift. We will definitely get to that. But okay, we've covered the heavy theme, the urge, the fire, the architectural trauma. But here is where the menu gets incredibly whimsical and, frankly, bizarre in the best possible way.
Yes.
We have to talk about the Momojito.
Or the Momojito, as the source playfully calls it. White rum, club soda, simple syrup, mint and lime, with a very thoughtful mocktail version.
Of course. But the drink is entirely secondary to the visual that accompanies. The YouTuber describes this image with a phrase that I think perfectly encapsulates the fandom. They call it the most Avatar has ever.
It's a profound statement masquerading as a joke.
It really is.
When we theorize about this adult movie, our minds naturally gravitate toward the heavy geopolitical theme. We think of the burden of leadership, the legacy of war, and massive elemental sets.
Right, exactly what we were just doing with Zuko.
The source admits that in all their years of imagining the good, the bad, and the confusing aspects of this upcoming film, the winged lemur pet never once crossed their mind.
You just naturally assume the pets take a back seat when the human characters are dealing with adult crisis. But out of all the sweeping imagery they could have put on this menu, one of the first things the public sees is Momo playful.
And he isn't swimming alone.
No, he is not.
This is where the world building of the franchise shines. The source notices Momo is swimming with some sort of creatures. At first glance, they look like beavers or otters.
Sure.
But as the YouTuber is writing their script, their ADHD brain, as they put it, catches a detail. They realize these aren't normal animals. They appear to be a hybrid.
Here we go.
The head looks like a catfish, and the tail looks like a beaver. A catfish beaver.
A catfish beaver. It is so perfectly absurd. And the YouTuber captures the exact feeling of experiencing this universe when they say that it is something that shouldn't make sense at all. But when you see it, you just go, yeah, I get it. That's kind of cool.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the philosophy of the hybrid creature is foundational to this universe's DNA, but it serves a very specific narrative purpose.
How so?
In a world where humans can manipulate the elements, the fauna must reflect that same level of magical realism. A normal bear is considered a bizarre anomaly in this universe, but more importantly, the hybrids act as a tonal anchor.
What do you mean by a tonal anchor?
Think about what the presence of a catfish beaver and a swimming Momo tells you, the listener, about the tone of this movie. The director and the designers are sending a very clear message through this menu art.
Okay, I'm following.
Yes, the characters are adults. Yes, there are massive fire blasts and serious threats to sacred temples. But the core joy, the whimsy, and the levity of the world remain entirely intact. The universe hasn't lost its sense of humor or its bizarre ecological imagination just because the protagonist got older.
I completely agree. It prevents the property from falling into the gritty reboot trap that so many franchises succumb to when they're caricature.
Yes, the gritty reboot is a plague on modern.
The juxtaposition of Zuko's intense, structure-burning combat with Momo's playful swim perfectly encapsulates the tonal tightrope this franchise walked successfully. It balances epic world-ending stakes with moments of pure, innocent delight.
It's a very difficult balance to strike. Often, when studios age up a property, they strip away the whimsy in an attempt to be taken serious. The fact that both ends of the emotional spectrum are proudly represented on a drink menu is a testament to how deeply the creators understand their own material.
They really do.
They know the audience wants the heavy, adult theme, but they also know the audience would reject a world that didn't have catfish.
It's comforting. It makes you feel like the property is in safe hands. And that feeling of artistic safety is heavily reinforced by the statements coming from the people who actually sat down and watched the film premiere.
Yes, the boots on the ground.
Right. We aren't just analyzing cardstock anymore. We have people who saw the finished 4-year culmination of work.
And not just any boots on the ground. The source provides a direct statement from Eric Nam, the voice actor for adult Aang. His reaction to seeing the film in its entirety is incredibly moving, but it also provides a deep well of insight into the sensory experience of the movie.
Eric Nam watched the film the night before releasing his statement, and he says he is still in awe. He calls the visuals astonishing, but he spends a significant amount of time highlighting the auditory experience.
This was fascinating.
He specifically praises the music, the score, and the sound design. Using a word that completely threw our YouTuber for a loop, Eric Nam called the sound design titillating.
The YouTuber's reaction to the word titillating is genuinely funny. They admit they had never heard the word used in that context before, had to look it up, and weren't even sure they were pronouncing it correctly.
Right.
But their confusion actually highlights the intensity of the word choice. Titillating implies a physiological response. It means arousing excitement, interest, or stimulation. It isn't just that the music is loud or pretty. It means the sound design is physically affecting the viewer's nervous system.
And Eric Nam goes on to say exactly that. He says, every detail pulls you deeper into this incredible world. He emphasizes that the film reminds you of how powerful storytelling can be when passionate people dedicate years of their lives to building something beautiful.
It's a great quote.
He congratulates the cast and crew, calling their work breathtaking, and signs off with Aang's classic, yip yip.
It's a brilliant sign-off, but let's dig into the substance of what he's praising, particularly the sound. The YouTuber connects Eric Nam's praise of the sound design to a piece of information they received years prior in a press release about the live-action Netflix series.
Oh, the orchestra!
Yes, that press release mentioned the use of a massive orchestra, something to the tune of 300 to 400 pieces.
A 300 to 400 piece orchestra. That is an almost unfathomable. Most standard big-budget film scores use orchestras of maybe 80 to 100.
Mac.
To quadruple that number creates an overwhelming wall of sound. The source implies that this level of musical grandeur is standard for the franchise's major project. Knowing this actually prompted the YouTuber to go out and buy a home theater surround sound system to prepare for it.
It's a funny aside, but it underscores a vital point about acoustic psychology and cinematic scoring. What does an orchestra of that massive size actually do to the emotional resonance of an animated film?
Well, I'd imagine it just makes everything louder, right? More brass, more strings, a bigger boom during the act.
It's actually much more sophisticated than just volume. When you scale an orchestra to 400 pieces, you are just increasing decibels. You're expanding the frequency range and the physical vibration of the sound.
The vibration.
Yes. Acoustic engineering at that level manipulates human psychology. Massive brass and percussion sections create low-frequency waves, sometimes dipping into infrasound, which the human ear can barely hear, but the human body can physically feel. It triggers a mild fight-or-flight response.
So when Toph braces against an impact, or Zuko unleashes a fire blast, a 400-piece orchestra makes the audience literally feel the physical vibration in their chest.
Precisely. It transforms the medium. Animation inherently relies on the suspension of disbelief you're looking at drawing. But when those drawings are backed by the raw kinetic vibration of 400 live instruments, it grounds the artificial image in physical reality.
That makes total sense.
The sound design becomes the bridge between the 2D plane and the audience's genuine emotional and physical core. It's why composers like Hans Zimmer or John Williams demand massive orchestrations for epic films.
Wow.
Eric Nam recognizes this implicitly when he practically begs the audience regarding how they should consume this art. He says, "This deserves to be seen on the biggest screen you can possibly find, and please turn the speakers all the way up." He's advocating for the sensory immersion that the acoustic engineering was designed for.
And while we're talking about the sensory experience, we have to talk about the visual evolution of Aang himself, because the source provides some really crucial technical details here.
Yes, the visual polish.
The YouTuber mentions that a while back, the cast and crew were sent commemorative wrap party apparel shirts and hoodies, and those items gave the first clear look at adult Aang's final.
The visual analysis here is quite technical. The source compares this apparel art to the leaked artwork from 2023, noting a significant upgrade in the technical execution of the animation style. Specifically, they focus on the line work.
Right. The source states that Aang's line work is now a bit more consistent and thicker than what we saw in the earlier rough. The YouTuber even had their thumbnail artist recreate the image to give the audience a reasonable expectation of what adult Aang will look, clarifying that the final film will be even more polished.
But the key phrase the source uses regarding the final polish is two-block shading. They mention that the shading will obviously be in the signature franchise art style, specifically naming the two-block shading sort of style.
Okay, let's break down what two-block shading means for you, the listener, who might not be in animation.
Please do.
Traditional 2D animation often uses a technique called cell two-block shading. Is a very specific, recognizable approach where instead of smooth, computer-generated gradients of shadow, you have distinct, hard-edged blocks of color to represent light and shadow.
Right.
You have the base color of the character's skin or clothing, and then a distinct, darker block of color represents.
It creates a very crisp graphic novel aesthetic. But more importantly, it defines the geometry of the character's face and muscles very clearly, which is essential for a show with so much dynamic martial arts movement.
Why is that essential?
If the shading is too soft or muddy, which often happens when studios try to blend 2D and 3D rendering, the kinetic impact of the movement is lost. The crisp lines and the two-block shading ensure that when the characters move, the biomechanics read instantly and clearly to the human eye.
It's the visual language of the franchise, hearing that they're fiercely protecting their 2D, hand-drawn roots with thicker, more consistent line work, rather than trying to look like a generic, hyper-polished 3D rendered movie, is just music.
Which makes the next part of our deep dive so incredibly poignant.
Yeah, here we go.
We have established the staggering artistic effort here. 4 years of passionate work, a 400-piece orchestra manipulating acoustic psychology, meticulous, consistent line work, and traditional two-block shading. Actors who are moved to awe by the final product, demanding it be seen on the biggest screens possible, with the sound cranked to the maximum.
And then reality hits.
Yes, the corporate reality.
Yeah.
This brings us to the statement from the director of the film, Lauren, and the incredibly complex dilemma the movie currently faces.
So what does this all mean for the actual release? Here's where we transition from the triumph of art to the cold, hard mechanics of the entertainment. The source reads a direct statement from director. She confirms that the Aang movie is officially wrapped. They screened the final film for the crew and celebrated the end of what she explicitly calls a 4-year journey. She says, "I never worked on an Avatar project that was easy, and this was no different, but it was worth. I'm so proud of everyone who was a part of this amazing together."
It's a statement of immense pride, but it's immediately followed by a sobering reality check. She states that the movie now awaits in limbo until its release. That word limbo carries so much weight. It implies a lack of control, a state of purgatory where the creators are entirely at the mercy of the distributors.
And that lack of control is tied to a massive, highly controversial shift in strategy from Paramount and Nickelodeon. The source explains that the studio made the decision to pull the movie from its planned theatrical release and move it exclusively to their streaming platform, Paramount Plus Way.
This is a seismic shift, and it raises an important question about the perceived hierarchy of entertainment mediums in the eyes of the public. Director Lauren is acutely aware of this perception.
She has to.
In her statement, she immediately goes on the defensive. She says, the recent decision to move us from theatrical to streaming might give the impression that the quality wasn't sufficient, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. The movie deserves to be seen on a big screen.
It breaks my heart to hear a director have to preemptively defend the quality of their work just because of the platform it's being released on. Why does that stigma still exist? We live in an era where streaming services produce Academy Award-winning films.
We do.
The idea that bypassing theaters means a movie wasn't good enough feels so out.
I disagree that it's entirely outdated. The bias remains because of the historical legacy of animated film. In the 90s and 2000s, during the straight-to-DVD era, if an animated sequel didn't go to theaters, it was a guarantee that it had a fraction of the budget, a different voice cast, and a massive drop in animation quality.
Oh, like the endless cheaply made Disney sequels.
Exact. The public has been conditioned for decades to equate the theatrical window with prestige and budget.
I hear you, but the streaming wars have blurred that line. Streamers are dropping hundreds of millions of dollars on singles television. The budget argument doesn't hold up anymore.
The budget argument might not hold up financially, but it holds up psychologically. Going to a theater is an event. It's a secular church where you commit 2 hours of your undivided attention to a piece of art in the dark.
That's true.
Streaming, by its nature, is passive. You're competing with the viewer's phone, their dog, their doorbell. When a massive corporation like Paramount takes a highly anticipated 4-year project and quietly shifts it from the event space to the passive space, the public naturally assumes the studio lacks faith in the product's ability to command an audience's undivided attention.
And director Lauren is shouting from the rooftops, nothing is wrong with it. It is amazing. She echoes Eric Nam's plea, insisting it deserves the big screen. She even ends her statement on a humanizing, slightly self-deprecating note, mentioning she's terrible at taking pictures, but managed to snap a few at the part.
It's a stark reminder that these are just artists, normal people, who have suddenly been thrust into the middle of a massive corporate pivot.
The YouTuber source expresses genuine sadness over this dynamic. They note how unfortunate it is that the director has to come out personally on social media to announce the movie is finished and stuck in limbo, rather than the studio dropping a massive, triumphant press release and
It's a failure of PR.
The source feels Paramount should be treating this marquee property with more respect.
And the fans are aggressively agreeing. The source mentions that fans have started a petition using the hashtag #BringToTheater to pressure Paramount into reversing the decision.
But honestly, I have to be cynical here. Can a grassroots internet petition actually change a massive corporate streaming strategy in 20?
Historically, the odds are practically zero. A corporate decision to move a tentpole film to a streaming service is rarely, if ever, about the artistic quality of the film. It is a mathematical calculation regarding subscriber acquisition and retention.
It's just numbers on a spreadsheet.
We'll get into the grim math of that shortly, but from the fans' perspective, it's a battle for the soul and the cinematic legitimacy of the franchise.
Adding to the slight sense of corporate friction is the official title. The source reveals that the movie was originally going to be titled The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender. That has now been officially changed Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender.
The YouTuber's not a fan of the change.
Yeah.
They describe it as feeling clunky, even though they admit it's better than some alternatives. They actually express a preference for a much older, rumored title, Avatar Lost Realm.
I completely understand why Avatar Aang feels clunky to a fan. The Legend of Aang mirrors the naming convention of The Legend of Korra. It feels poetic. It ties the generations together.
It does.
But I'll play devil's advocate for the studio here. Avatar is billion-dollar keyword. If you are scrolling through a streaming app, the algorithm and the human eye need to see the word Avatar first.
That's entirely true.
Avatar Aang ensures immediate brand recognition, even if it feels a little redundant to say both Avatar and Airbender in the same breath. It's a decision made for search engine optimization.
You're completely right. It's SEO over poetry. And it's a symptom of the limbo director Lauren described. The art is finished, the 400-piece score is recorded, the 2-block shading is locked, and now the product is being packaged for an algorithm. And the timeline for when we actually get to click on that algorithmically optimized title is highly contested.
Which brings us to the conflicting release timelines floating around. The source dives into this, pointing out that on one hand, there's a listing from Edelweiss. It's a major catalog data used by the book pub. This listing suggests the movie is tied to a June release, which would align with a major publisher. But on the other hand, the YouTuber interprets director Lauren's statement to mean the film is stuck in limbo until October.
And beyond that, the source casually mentions that the next major animated project, Avatar, Seven Haven, is slated for late 2026. So there's a massive traffic jam of content waiting to be deployed.
This is where the YouTuber lays out what they believe is the master strategy, the ultimate win-win lifeline for Paramount. And to understand why Paramount needs a lifeline, we have to look at the staggering financial reality the source drops in the middle of this analysis.
Yes.
The YouTuber points out that Paramount recently took on $100 billion in debt.
$100 billion in debt. That's a level of corporate liability that fundamentally changes how a company operates.
It's incomprehensible.
When a studio is carrying that much debt, largely stemming from legacy cable decline, mergers, and the exorbitant costs of the streaming wars. Every single decision is scrutinized purely through the lens of maximizing immediate revenue and stabilizing the stock price.
Right.
The artistic merit of a project becomes entirely secondary to its function as a financial asset.
The pressure on this one animated movie is astronomical. It isn't just a story about a flying bison and a kid with arrow tattoos anymore. It's a vital asset in a corporate war for survival.
It is.
The YouTuber, acting as an armchair CEO, looks directly into the camera and pleads with anyone from Paramount who might be watching to follow their proposed plan.
Let's break down the YouTuber's master plan, because it's a perfect illustration of how fans view the anatomy of a multi-platform hype cycle.
Okay, step one of the master: capitalize on the Netflix. The source points out that the live-action Netflix series is releasing its second season in a couple of months.
Right.
They remind Paramount of the absolute explosion of engagement that occurred when season 1 dropped. Merchandise sold out everywhere. The YouTuber notes that their own channel's views increased tenfold, having the best month. Tide rose, and it lifted every single boat associated with the property.
The source reasonably expects a similar boom for season 2. Their argument is essentially about riding the coattails of Netflix's marketing budget.
Smart.
When a rival streamer spends hundreds of millions marketing a live-action show, the general public's awareness of the underlying hype spike. People start Googling the characters, rewatching old episodes, and re-engaging with the brand.
Which leads to step 2 of the plan: move the animated movie's release date up to the summer.
Okay, the June release.
The YouTuber argues that waiting until October is a massive mistake. Summer is when kids are out of school, and when blockbuster viewing is at its peak. If you drop the movie 1 or 2 months after the Netflix season premieres, you catch the wave of hype right at its crest. You convert the live-action viewers directly into streaming viewers for the animated.
I have to admit, as a consumer, that sounds brilliant.
It does.
But the strategy doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Step 3 involves a third, entirely different medium. The source points out that there is a highly anticipated franchise fighting game also scheduled for release in the summer.
The synergy. The YouTuber is practically giddy at the prospect.
Yeah.
They say, imagine how much money you guys would make. You have Netflix coming out, you'd have the movie, and then everybody's talking about the property again. They're wanting to play the game, and then you serve them one on a silver platter.
It's the holy grail of modern franchise management.
Mm-hmm.
The cross-platform multimedia assault. You don't just release a movie. You surround the consumer's entire media diet. They watch the show on Friday, they stream the movie on Saturday, and they play the video game all week.
Exactly. Every piece of media serves as an advertisement for the other.
And the final piece of the YouTuber's puzzle, step 4, is follow up the fighting game by releasing the next animated project, Avatar,
Yes.
7 Havens, at the end of the year.
It's a relentless, year-long barrage of content designed to establish total cultural dominance. The source calls it the perfect relaunch and insists it would be silly to not take advantage of it.
So why wouldn't they do that?
I have to play the corporate villain here and completely tear down the YouTuber's luck.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes, it's a compelling argument from a fan who understands attention ecosystems, but it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of streaming economics.
Wait, how does dominating the summer with cross-platform synergy back?
Because of ARPU, average revenue per user, and subscriber churn?
Okay, walk me through that. The YouTuber assumes that maximizing hype in the summer maximizes revenue. But streaming services aren't box office. They don't sell individual tickets. They sell monthly subscriptions. If you drop the Netflix show, the animated movie, and the video game all within a 2-month window in the summer, you risk media cannibalization.
Because there's too much at once.
Exactly. Consumer only has so much free. If I'm grinding a 60-hour fighting game, I might not have time to stream the movie.
But even if they stream it a month later, there's...
Not necessarily. That's the churn problem. If you front-load all your massive IP assets in the summer, what do you have left to offer in Q4? Nothing.
Oh,
Subscribers will binge the content in July and cancel their Paramount Plus subscription in August. From a corporate board's perspective, placing the movie in October makes cynical perfect.
so they space it out.
If Netflix dominates the spring and the video game dominates the summer, Paramount intentionally holds the movie until the fall to prevent subscriber churn in Q4. They're spacing out their assets to ensure there is always a carrot dangling in front of the consumer month after month.
Wow, that is incredibly bleak. So you're saying Paramount might purposely delay a finished 4-year artistic triumph, keeping it in limbo, just to plug a hole in their Q4 spreadsheet so Wall Street doesn't panic over a dip in subscriber numbers.
When you have $100 billion in debt, yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what you do. It's endlessly frustrating for the fan who wants to see the finished art immediately, and it's demoralizing for the artists who want their work seen, but it is standard operating procedure for a massive conglomerate managing an astronomical debt load.
It's such a stark, almost violent contrast.
It really is.
On one side, you have artists agonizing over two-block shading and the biomechanics of Toph's stance. You have sound engineers recording a 400-piece orchestra to manipulate acoustic psychology and elevate animation to a cinematic.
And on the other side,
You have accountants calculating subscriber churn rates and SEO optimizing titles, holding that beautiful piece of art hostage in a vault until the fiscal quarter aligns perfectly.
it's the eternal tension of the entertainment, laid completely bare by a leaked drink menu and a YouTuber's impassioned video. The source actually ends their video on a very sweet note, putting aside the corporate strategy to congratulate the creators, Mike, Brian, director Lauren, and the entire cast and crew on simply finishing the project.
That's nice to hear.
They promise to cover the film extensively and express a deep, genuine desire for it to succeed. It's a necessary reminder that underneath the grim corporate math and the internet rumors, there is a genuine, abiding love for these characters and the world they inhabit.
It really is. The fandom cares so much. They care about Toph's belt, they care about Zuko's hair, they care about the catfish beaver, and they care deeply about the artists who bring them to life. And that passion is ultimately what drives this entire machine forward, regardless of the platform.
Let's pull all these disparate threads together. This has been a remarkable journey through a very specific, chaotic set of information.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We started by examining the sheer irony and futility of a do not photograph sticker at a wrap party in the digital age. We deconstructed a bootlegged cocktail menu using the recipes and the artwork to divine the evolution of beloved characters.
Right, from the vodka to the Thai basil.
We analyzed the biomechanics of Toph, bracing against an unseen force, and we explored the heavy thematic implications of a matured Zuko unleashing structure-burning fire at an air temple.
We marvel at the absolute whimsy of the Momojito and the realization that even amidst massive adult geopolitical, the world's creators know how to use hybrid creatures like a cat.
Awe of the voice cast, diving into the psychological impact of a 400-piece orchestra and how meticulous two-block shading preserves the kinetic energy of traditional 2D animation.
And finally, we collided head-on with the harsh realities of corporate limbo.
We debated the stigma of shifting from theatrical to streaming releases, unpacking the defensive posture of a proud director. We analyzed the clunky necessity of SEO-driven title changes, and we tore down a fan's dream of cross-platform synergy by looking at the desperate, high-stakes math of subscriber churn required to service a $100 billion corporate debt.
We've seen how one single piece of media is expected to act as a financial anchor for an entire conglomerate.
Knowledge is truly about holding these multiple perspectives simultaneously, appreciating the breathtaking, painstaking art, while clearly understanding the cold, calculated business mechanics that finally deliver it to it.
It's a lot to process, but it gives you such a profound appreciation for what it takes to actually get a movie onto your screen. It's never just about drawing pictures. It's a miracle of endurance, economics, and sheer willpower.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as we conclude our deep dive today. We've heard the passionate pleas from the director and the lead actor. They built this movie over 4 painstaking years for the biggest screen possible, designing the sound for massive theaters and the visuals for massive projection.
Right.
But corporate strategy dictates it will likely be viewed on laptops, tablets, and living room TV. This raises an important question. Does the platform we use to consume a piece of art fundamentally change the art itself? When you finally sit down to watch adult Aang with the volume turned up on your television, will you be watching the movie the director made or the product the corporation delivered?
That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's exactly the kind of question that makes this all so fascinating. You'll have to let us know where you land on that. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of animation leak, wrap party cocktails, and the intense corporate strategy behind the screen. Keep asking those questions, keep looking for the bigger picture, and we'll catch you.